Only speak when invited to by the chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communications via the chair. Please ensure that your mics are muted when you're not speaking. When speaking, be succinct and do not exceed the allocated timeframes highlighted at the start of the hearing. If you're referring to a specific page of picture in a report, refer to the page number, please. If you are having technical difficulties, please use the chat function in Google Meet. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the subcommittee. Any persistent disruptive behaviour will result in removal from the meeting. Each application is heard in turn as set out in the agenda pack. The subcommittee will not retire after each application. Once all applications have been considered, any remaining parties will be asked to log out of the hearing. Please do so promptly so that councillors will have the opportunity to deliberate and make a decision on each application they have heard. Each party will be notified of the decision within 5 working days. Please could I ask the subcommittee to appoint a chair?
I nominate Councillor Root.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. That's good. Thank you, Councillor Conway. Okay. Let me just getting my papers in. So I think now we have a chair. We don't have any apologies for absence, as far as I'm aware.
No apologies, Chair.
And any declarations of interest? I don't have any. Councillor Conway, do you have any?
No. No.
Good. Okay. In that case, I think we can move on to think about the hearing procedure. Let's get to the relevant pages so I can zoom through that. Oops. Sorry, bear with me. It's a bit difficult when you're trying to do everything on the screen and at the same time look at different papers and see everybody on the screen as well. Basically, though, I think probably the first thing we should probably do before we move into the hearings, because we've got 3 different things to look at today. First issue is regarding an application for a licence from a particular premises called Sabertooth in Hoxton Street. So perhaps the thing to do would be for everybody here who is relevant to that particular hearing to introduce themselves. Does that sound the right thing to do? So we all know who we are. So I'm obviously Penny Root. I'm the chairing this committee, the subcommittee, and I'm the councillor for Victoria. Perhaps we could go around and introduce ourselves now.
Hi, I'm Councillor Conway and I'm a councillor in Hackney Central Ward.
Amanda?
Hello, I'm Amanda North from Legal Services, supporting members this afternoon. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Subhashri Ramana, the Principal Licensing Officer.
Peter, would you like to introduce yourself?
Peter Gray, Governance Officer.
PC Hunwick.
Yeah, I'm PC Hunwick. I'm not in the first one, so I'll keep quiet for the time being.
Okay, thank you. We've got somebody who says Sabertooth Hoxton in front of them, but we don't have a name. Hello.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi.
Well, we could. We can't now.
Sorry, it's the first. Please accept my apologies. The first time I've done a Zoom meeting, so if I stop fumbling, just bear with me, okay? But yeah, my name's Suki, and I'm the owner-operator of Sabertooth over in Hoxton Street.
Thank you. Suki is your first name or your second name?
It's, my full name's Sukhvinder. Everyone calls me Suki for short.
Okay. you mind if we can have your surname as well, please?
Yeah, it's Pabla, which is Pabla.
Thank you. And apart from that, perhaps I can introduce Councillor Suso Rong, who's observing this meeting at the moment. She's Amanda, what did you want to say?
Thank you.
Sorry, Amanda, you had your hand up for a moment. You're on mute though. We didn't hear that, sorry.
Sorry, there's a Mr. Peter Consby who is also in attendance. So I don't know if he needs to introduce himself.
Thank you, Chair. I was just awaiting my turn. Consultant for Sabretooth Hoxton.
Ah, right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we all know who we are. We've seen the papers that have been presented. Can I just double check that there is nobody else here who is relevant to this particular hearing for Sabretooth? Nobody who's coming to speak either for or against the application? No.
Sorry, Chair, just for clarification, did you clarify that Councillor Suso Runga is only observing this afternoon? She's not participating in the decision making?
Sorry, I was in the process of doing that, and then I got distracted. Sorry. So, Councillor Suso Runga is
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
to see what we're up to.
I'm going to turn the camera off now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. Well, in that case, I think that the usual way that this proceeds is that the applicant has the opportunity to say something about why they're making the application and to speak about it. Any objectors are then given some time to talk about why they're objecting to it. And indeed, then we can, if nobody is here in person to object, we can have a chat about any of the written objections that we've received and perhaps ask you some questions about that. And then we can have a discussion. So let's kick off either with Mr. Pabla or Mr. Consby. I'm not sure who's going to do the speaking. Oh, sorry.
We need to present the report.
Yes, we have to have a formal introduction first. Sorry, Suba. Suba will give us a proper formal introduction so we know exactly what we're talking about. Thank you, Suba.
Thank you, Chair. Licensing Service received an application for a premises license under the Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003 for 285 Foxton Street to authorize the supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, as stated within the report. We have received representations from other persons. The applicant has submitted additional information which has been circulated. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So now we all know where we are. We're on the same page. So is it Mr. Pabla or is it Mr. Consby who's going to speak for Sabretooth?
I will start, if that's right.
Okay, that's fine. So if you'd like to tell us about the application, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I want to apologise for the depth of submissions I felt I had to make and the additional reading I've put you through to get us here today. Grateful you've obviously all read it. I'll try not to repeat too much of it. But there's not a lot for me to actually say because I've covered it all off in the letters previously. But I'd like to just cover off an email that we received yesterday from Humdingers, one of the objectors. It has been mentioned to the authority previously, there's a history between Humdingers and Sabretooth, which started after lockdown, all of which was stuff from Humdingers directed at my client. I can cover it off if you want me to, and I'll be happy to add clarity to what has gone on over the last 2 years, as it's a large part of why we're here today. But I think at the moment it's probably best to concentrate more on the positives and ticking off the comments that brought us here. So with regard to that email that we received yesterday, my submission to the committee last week explained why Sabretooth applied for a license in the first place. And there is no competition between Finley's and Sabretooth, as that email says. Cassia at Finley's is actually a client of mine, and she actually recommended my services to Sabretooth. They're very different businesses in both style and product. And the owner of Finley's has actually signed a petition in favour of Sabretooth. So quite clearly there's no issue between the two whatsoever. It's quite the opposite. Yes, this end of the street is residential, but considering every business and resident in the same block have shown their support for the application, along with hundreds of other residents and workers. They know the business, they know the owner, they believe it will not cause any issues. With regard to the comments said about the Reverend, I think his letter that we submitted to you, which he freely offered to write, I might add, he wasn't asked. It speaks volumes, and with all due respect to his absence today, I think anyone's permitted to support, well, he's permitted to support whoever he wishes to, and should be able to do so without recourse. At the end of the consultation period, there were no representations from any of the responsible authorities. Aside from Humdingers, the only objections we received were from two residents living, as the crow flies, one just short of 200 and one just short of 400 metres away from Sabretooth. Therefore, in terms of any potential issues and disturbance, it is, in our opinion, highly unlikely that they would be affected by anything that happens at Sabretooth, whereas the 350 plus residents, workers and business owners that have signed the petition would be affected. But knowing my client, they clearly have no such concerns. So at this point, I think I've probably said enough. I'll pass you over to Suki Pabla to explain how his business came about and how it evolved the last couple of years. Suki.
Right, thank you, Peter. And firstly, just to say thank you very much for hearing me out today. As I said earlier, this is my first online meeting, so I'm going to try not to start, and I'll do my best to get through this with you. But I thought it might be a good idea to tell you a little bit of history first about myself and about the shop. So I've been living in Hackney since 2009. I actually moved over from Derby, and basically I have stayed in Hackney since then. My very first job in the area was actually in Hoxton Square. I was a restaurant manager for a little sushi restaurant, which was, and then from there I worked in some of the other restaurants in and around the area. And hand on heart, I actually believe that I am local to this area. I live a 10-minute walk away from here. And as Peter said, I kind of know just about every business and person on this street. For the most part, I have a really good relationship with everybody here. It's always been a bit of a dream of mine to have a shop. And it's basically down to the fact that I've lived here for so long. And apart from the people I lived with and the odd associate here or there, didn't really know anybody. And I really wanted a place where people could come together, chat, and just become friends. And it's actually a really great thing to witness when that happens right before your eyes, right? When you introduce somebody to somebody else out on the table and you see a friendship spark up. And it's one of the most beautiful things about the shop that I think a lot of people really enjoy. The shop's open 7 days a week, from 7 a.m. Monday to Friday through till 7 p.m. and Saturdays and Sundays 8 till 6. And pretty much it's just open. It's very uncommon for us to shut. We've had to close right now just so I can give you guys my full attention. But there's little things about the shop I should probably tell you. I mean, as you come in from the outside, there's a little book exchange run by the local neighbourhoods. It's happened quite by accident in one of the lockdowns, and quite freely now, from time to time, I get inundated with books that then get taken away by other people and brought back again. We offer a free bike pump to a lot of the cyclists and stuff out there. This is all free of charge, I might add. And again, we get a lot of dog walks and stuff. There's a little bowl outside just for the dogs to walk through, you know. Kind of also the unofficial post office for a lot of the residents, because I am open pretty much daily for a large chunk of time. It's not uncommon for me to receive parcels for the neighbours upstairs, the other businesses who might have to close and stuff. And I really consider this place to be a neighbourhood coffee shop. It's really what I work daily on, and I don't know how much I can stress that. As I said, we do work a lot with the other businesses, and one of the things that we do is every month we donate to Hackney Food Bank. This is cash, by the way. A lot of people from the food bank come here, show us support. I felt only right for the shop to do the same. Excuse me. I actually opened this place 6 months before the pandemic started. So in terms of business plans, threw that right out the window and start all over again, and basically reconfigured the shop to become a local deli, selling essential items. But because I didn't want to tread on the toes of all the other businesses that have been here, like Hodgson Brothers, Green Grocers and stuff, I went about it by going to speak to the market traders who couldn't sell their produce, and we began stocking it. And a good chunk of it's right behind me here. So we sell a lot of local. About 80% of the stock here is from local makers, as well as local artists who have all kind of decorated our walls, just so people can see who they are, get to know their work, track them down on social. So really, like I say, wherever possible, I really want to include everybody who walks through the shop. Throughout the pandemic, like I say, we did our very best to keep social distancing measures in place, ensure customer safety. I was actually one of the first people on the street to get all these ULB fogging machines to deep sanitize everything from the outside, the neighbors, shops, the produce itself. And it's something we still maintain to this day. It just feels that the right thing to do is just keep on top of our hygiene and everything else along this way. Now, since I've been open, I think a lot of the customers have been talking to me about potentially getting a license. I'd say approaching, and the shop would have been open 3 years on the 9th of September. And across that time, I have the conversation is a lot about how am I going to get a license? When will I get my license? I'm making an application. And it's something that kind of put off for a little while because, again, with the pandemic and stuff, I didn't want to rock the boat too much. But now things seem to be settling down. It's another conversation that's flared back up, and hence this whole process. I'd admit, a few of the customers told me to do things like bring your own alcohol, temporary events and stuff, but I really didn't want to go down the road of bring your own, because I felt that people coming in here using their own measures might be a bit problematic, and I'd rather be having a very controlled environment where people serve drinks in standardized measures as opposed to just free pouring the bottle for themselves. And really, the main reason I kind of wanted this was to pair with the food offerings that we kind of want to extend into the evening. As you can imagine, for a coffee shop, we kind of hit a bit of a wall around 6, 7 o'clock, where the last thing somebody really wants is double espresso, but they don't really want to go home. They don't want to go to a noisy environment. And this is kind of where we come in. I really feel like if you're so clear with yourselves, sorry, I think I'm losing people everywhere there. If you're so clear with yourselves, I'll happily pick up the laptop and show you around the shop so you can get an idea of the aesthetics and the setup. But it really is a small quality and art orientated space, very intimate. We have 3 tables here, and that's really it.
Okay. I think we've probably got the picture of what sort of business you're running.
Mhm.
And, certainly it's outlined in the papers why you'd like the license that you've got. It doesn't seem to me that you're asking for. Hello, Amanda. What did you want to say?
Through the chair, Chair, I don't know if you wanted to clarify why premises is open from 7 in the morning
Well,
rather than core hours.
I think it's because it's a shop as well as a coffee shop.
Yeah, we're a coffee shop, but again, it's just the nature of the footfall. We kind of get open and prepared for people coming into the offices. There's a lot of the construction sites around here. We get a real mixed bag of people that come in here, and what we found is a lot of the early starters, they want to come through, grab pastry and coffee, quick natter, and go about their day. So we found that 7 is kind of the good time to open, and no one's really had any grievance with us about opening that early. And like I say, it's just kind of. Sorry?
I think more I was getting at, not so much, I appreciate that it may be selling coffee at 7, possibly, if that's a necessity, possibly, but more whether the alcohol sales needs to start from 7 or later.
No, to be honest,
Not fine from 7, no, I don't think.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry to interrupt. Can I jump in there, Chair? The alcohol, 11 a.m.
Yes, it's
Right,
11 o'clock.
11 a.m.
yeah.
But does that answer your question, Amanda? That's good. Okay. So, so you're open for coffee from 7, and then you're looking to be able to serve alcohol should anybody want it from 11 onwards till 10 o'clock tonight, I think. Is that right?
Ideally, I mean, to be honest, although we see there's permissions, I don't really envision. I don't want to become a bar. I don't really want to have liquor and beers and stuff on display throughout the whole day. What I really envisioned was something, a much condensed offering. If anything, it's an expansion on an offering to my customers. And I felt being able to open later Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights was and doing the kind of alcohol offering alongside the food into the evenings on those days. To be honest, I don't really want to be offering this stuff Monday, Tuesday, all the way through the week. So I think that would actually be detrimental to the shop, just by having stuff on display. Right? It really is. Although we're asking for less time, so my initial focus would be on those 3 days, and kind of build from there. But again, like I said, it's on the stress.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the truth of the matter is that if you're applying to be able to do it 7 days a week, then you'll have the option of doing that or not. It's entirely
Yeah.
what you choose to do. I would say just a couple of observations. One is that the issue of competition that Mr. Conisby was raising is not something which is relevant to the licensing objectives, generally speaking.
Mhm.
So that's not something that we would be taking into consideration anyway. So I don't
Okay.
think we need to discuss that further. I was just going to ask a couple of, well, one question, and since we don't have any of the objectors here, I think we'll just cut to the chase and move straight into the discussion phase of this, and I'll see if Councillor Conway has got some questions in a moment. My question was just about outside space, whether you use any outside space, and what your attitude is to that.
Yeah, and how I would, sorry, I lost you at the very last bit of that.
Sorry, just how you use the outside space and how a license might impact on that.
Well, we do have outdoor seating. Again, there's three small tables and a bench. To be honest, my neighbour actually gave me her outdoor space as well, which I don't really intend on using. It was done through the lockdown when she wasn't operating. But with regards to, and I believe when the police came to visit, they said they were fine for us to use the outdoors, which is immediately outside our front door. And I think it's about up to 12 people we could realistically accommodate out there. But again, the main focus would be on indoor seated drinking as opposed to people piling out outside, because I don't really want that. And I hope that kind of answers your question there.
I need a little clarification, possibly from Amanda. As far as I'm aware, you're not asking for a license to drink outside, I don't think. Is that right? Amanda, have I missed something in the application?
Well, we did discuss something with the police, and I believe they didn't seem to have any objections to us using the outdoor space for drinking. Again, I think
We've got some other offer of help here, which might be useful.
Okay.
Super.
Thank you, Chair. The agent has agreed conditions with the police, which is condition number 30, where it says there will be maximum of 16 customers that must be seated in the allocated outside area at any one time. So that's condition number 30 within the report.
You're on mute, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought I'd seen something about outside. I was looking through the papers and I was trying to find it. So condition 30.
Yeah, that's been agreed with the police.
I'm struggling to find it on my papers now.
It's a small area. Super, do you want to read the condition out for her then? Thanks.
Yeah, there will be a maximum of 16 customers that must be seated in the allocated outside area at any one time.
And do we have any kind of time limit on that at all?
Does it finish? Does it close off at 10 o'clock or not 10, but you know?
I
So-
mean, because one of the things that quite often happens is that for outside drinking, there's an earlier time limit than there is for inside drinking. That's the issue.
Chair, if I can jump in, this was set in line with the pavement license timings, which is why we didn't want to go beyond that. And I think Suki will tell me that the chances of him having anyone sat out there at that time would be quite rare, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think I'm just wanting to be clear really about what sort of time somebody can drink outside in the street till, because I'm partly because I'm trying to find the right page on here, but at the moment that isn't specified, I don't think, is it? So if you're licensed up until 10 o'clock, that means that people can drink outside until 10 o'clock as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that was it.
And can I check with Amanda? That is slightly unusual, isn't it? Because quite often in the area, there are other establishments which have to close a bit earlier than drinking outside.
Yes, I mean they're agreeing to close. You know, they've agreed a time with the police, and as long as that's acceptable, you know, I don't think there's been any issue raised around that. That should be fine.
All right, that's fine. So since nobody's objecting to that, I don't think that I've got any kind of objection to that. The other question I had before I asked Councillor Conway is a question about the loudness of music, which is one of the issues which is raised in the people who are objecting to the application. I wondered if you could address that a bit more directly for us, please.
Suki, would you like to explain that issue that you had?
Well, there was, firstly, as I say, I shut at 7, so in terms of loud music, there's evening right now, there's no activity. Normally done by 8:30 out of here, and like I say, it's a low noise environment. The only real time there was someone came and spoke to me about music was in lockdown 1. As I said, I opened quite early, and if you probably remember, it was a very strange time where the streets are oddly quiet. And I think just being open and the sound just travelled out. And one of my neighbours asked me to keep it down, which I did immediately. And actually, Tracy is her name. She signed in favour of my petition. She's very supportive of me. Again, we get on very well, and she knows the shop, and she knows I'm not disruptive. And it's, like I say, that's the only noise issue I've ever had, and complaints in general, to be honest. So again, it's not kind of a place where there's going to be lots of DJs and all this kind of stuff. It's background ambient music, which is more to set a tone and mood of the shop, and which is not an aggressive, loud, punchy kind of affair.
Okay. Councillor Conway, have you got any questions you'd like to ask?
Thank you, Chair. I was actually going to ask the same question about noise, but seeing as it's already been asked, I wanted to ask a bit more about, I know that you've spoken quite a lot about the character of the premises and the type of business that you run and the type of clients that you have, but I'm wondering, you know, serving alcohol has the potential to change that and to change the way that people use that space. And I just wonder how you envisage managing what one of the people who'd written in I think it's B2 had mentioned about people being tipsy and noisy of an evening, and I just wondered how you envisage managing that, as I appreciate it would be very different to what you're currently managing.
No, thank you for asking that. The only way I can really say that is, again, being the kind of environment where people are seated, and there's no standing up drinking, nothing crowded down. It's really for a mature audience, the shop. I like to remember my younger years when I was 20 and stuff, used to go out, and I know that can be quite boisterous, but that's not who I'm targeting. I'm really offering an extra service to the customers that already come here who respect the shop and actually show it a great deal of love in the way they bring stuff here. It's again, it might be easy if I can show you around quickly, but there's not space for mass amounts of drinking to be involved, because I really truly believe the ambience and myself controlling it won't allow for that. We're not serving tequila shots and vodka shots here. It's more about a nice glass of wine and a small beer. And again, my greater idea is to really pair this with the food offering that we want to bring into the evening. So if anything, going kind of a casual borderline restaurant as opposed to a bar, if I hope that makes sense there. But I'm not really aiming for big groups of people to come and sink 10 sangrias and leave again. I really just want a low-key, intimate place where couples can come and hang out, or housemates can come play some board games and have a beer.
Can I just ask a follow-up?
Mhm.
Sorry to keep on
No,
this
fine.
particular point, but I suppose just thinking about where you are in Hoxton as well, there is a potential to have people who have been drinking in one place who sort of walking along the street and decide to come into your place. So I suppose it's how would you manage that potential? I know that you've got a target audience, but
all I can really say is, I've spent many years working in hospitality before opening this place, kind of since my early teens, or late teens, should I say, from 18 onwards. And honestly, I think sometimes the best thing to do is just to refuse a sale, and rather than kind of create a place that's also off-putting for other people. And I think, honestly, it's kind of difficult to talk about what may occur, but I'm fairly, I know the kind of people I want in here, and I know the kind of people that I don't. And to be honest, again, with the ambience and the atmosphere, I think I'd be more of I think there's a bit of a filter with the kind of place that 10 people who've been drinking all day probably won't want to come into. I hope that clears that a little bit.
thank you.
I suppose I'm a bit curious to explore a bit more this idea of how the shop might change slightly with the addition of a license. So at the moment, you said earlier that you're closing at 7. Is that weekdays only, or is that at weekdays?
Yeah, and then 6 Saturday and Sundays.
Okay, so at the moment, this issue about noise, which has been what's been raised in the letters, is very much during the daytime, if there is an issue. It sounds as though there's only a nominal one. And I think my question really is, particularly with regard to if people are outside drinking until 10 o'clock at night, if there could be a noise sensitivity, because as is also pointed out in the letters, this is very much the quiet end of Hoxton Street. And I think people will be a bit sensitive to additional noise later on in the evening.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And in the summertime, especially, if you've got people outside drinking, until 10 o'clock at night, that could be a big issue. Now, how might you deal with that?
Sorry, I didn't catch the very last bit there. You can fade it out.
How would you deal with it if you had people who were, paying customers, they've had a meal, they're not doing anything illegal or whatever, but they might be doing something which your neighbours might consider a bit antisocial?
Well, I'd ask them to stop. When we get going, I will put the signs up saying, please be respectful to our neighbours. We are a heavily residential area. But as I say, I have residents directly above me and who've all signed a petition in favour of what I want to do. And really, I think it's just a case of being able to approach these people and explain to them why we're here, and to the fact that there are flats around. I find that just approaching these guys should probably just be just as powerful as anything else. But again, I don't see boisterous activity and such like playing part here. In the daytime, we get lots of people coming in, and it's pretty much very difficult for me to make noise in the daytime, because I've got people coming here who want to sit and work, read, and this place is surrounded by books and such. Also, as of late, we've got a lot of people doing Zoom calls and such like. So again, the music part of this is all background ambient. It's not loud and pounding, especially at midday and such, because if I did that, I wouldn't have any customers. It's quite that simple. So again, I'm aware of the concerns you have, but I'm also, like I say, hand on heart, going to do my very utmost to make sure the people who've shown me good faith by signing my petition and shown me support, I'm not going to throw that back at them over a few drinks. As I say, this is my home, and I need to be able to look these neighbours in the eyes, and that means a lot to me, because without them, there is no shop. Simple as.
I mean, that all sounds very positive. To be honest, I'm a bit surprised that the police have given you the license until 10 o'clock outside. Seems a little bit unusual, particularly for a sort of a new application, as it were. Quite often, people will get permission to have it drinking outside until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and then if it goes well, then they extend it later on if they want to. I suppose my question is just in terms of you sort of trying to manage behaviour outside.
Mhm.
Could it even be helpful for you to have a license which stopped drinking outside at 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening? Is that something that might help you to manage the situation?
I mean, I'm open to it. Don't get me wrong, my ideal, it would be nice if people, I don't want to be treating people like children. I want to show people the same respect that they show me. But at the end of the day, if you show a sign of good faith to yourselves, I'm happy to work under any conditions you put forward. But I don't know if it's going to help me or not help me. It's kind of tough for me to say. But I'd be very much open to reduced hours outside if
we felt that was
people-
necessary.
Yeah, no, completely.
Okay.
But say I'm
Alright.
here to work with the neighbourhood, not against it, and yourselves as well.
At this point, then, I personally haven't got any more questions. Unless anyone else has questions, I think what we'll probably do is to adjourn for the time being to just finalise any decision that we'd like to make. Suba?
Sorry, Chair, it's just I want to clarify. The hours whichever the police have agreed for the external area are within the LP6 of the policy hours, which is from 8 to 2200. I just want to
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. No, I'm aware of that. I'm just also...
Yeah, super. I think she was just talking about the noise nuisance potentially outside. So sometimes reducing that hour, even though it's within the core hours, might help the area. So I think that's what she was getting. Claire was getting at.
Yeah. Okay. So I think for the time being, we've finished. I believe that someone will be back in touch with you later on this afternoon or first thing tomorrow to let you know where we are with the decision, and then you'll have that in writing fairly shortly afterwards, if that's okay. Are you happy with that? Any questions before we go?
No, just like to say thank you once again for hearing me out. Really appreciate your time. And
yeah,
look
well,
to hear from you.
us too.
Thank you.
Good luck with the enterprise. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Chair, can I just chip in one little bit, if I may, just to just to finish off. Whether it helps in your decision or not, it has with other operators certainly. I'm a retired police officer, and I worked in licensing across the board in Islington for a number of years before I retired. When my clients get to this stage, or if they get a license, they still get me banging away in their ear for quite a while afterwards as to how to manage their premises. And they manage it in the way that I, as a police officer back then, would want them to manage the premises. The officer I spoke to at Hackney knows me well. She knows how I treat my clients and how I work with my clients, and she knows full well that Suki's going to get a bit of a nice talking to from me about how to manage his crowd and those signs that you might pick up when somebody might have had one or two too many. But in all honesty, this, with all due respect to Suki's premises, it doesn't have the ambiance or the look about it that is going to attract the younger crowd to pop in there for a quick one. It is really, really, I can't emphasize it enough. I've not seen one like it before, to be honest. And I said that to him. It's not just community based, but it's community led venue. And
I'm not going to take offence at the idea that older people can't make noise as well.
we can, we're just more polite about it. I'll stop there. I'll leave it there because
All right, no, we hear what you're saying. Thank you. Good. Okay. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to the next item now. So those people who are only concerned,
Thank you.
can leave it there. Good. So the next item is an application for TENS.
119 Wallace Street.
Yes. Super. I wonder if you'd like to introduce that for us, please.
Thank you, Chair. Temporary notice was given to the licensing service in respect of a premises for 119 Wallace Road for an event to be held on the 25th of June 2020 from 1400 till the 26th of June 2022 until 2300. We have received objection from the police. That's why the purpose of this hearing. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So at this point, I'm guessing that PC Neil Hunwick, you're here to make the police representations. Is that right? You are on the mute. You can nod if you want.
And I'm just looking for the button. Yeah, that's correct, Chair.
Perhaps I can ask Rhys Rose and Gary Twining Wright to tell us why they are here.
Good afternoon. My name is Rhys John Rose. I'm here to represent and make a case for allowing the temporary event notice to go ahead at 119 Wallace Road based on my own personal experience and the added control that I would bring to try and alleviate the police's concerns. I'm also the applicant in this particular case, and I've got Gary here as the head of security for the firm that I regularly use as my security provider, Twinings. I'll let him introduce himself. You there, Gary?
Yeah, I'm here. It's Gary Twining right here. Hope you all can hear me. The reason why I'm here is to assist Rhys's application because there was the police have made a couple of complaints against this application, which we need to address, and also we're here to support Rhys and understand how we can make sure the TENS goes correctly.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. So correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, but I think in this particular case we hear from PC Hunwick first because he's opposing the TENS, and then we'll hear from the TENS applicants. So PC Hunwick, tell us why you don't like the look of this as it stands.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Earlier this year, myself and my colleague met with a premises user and his associate at the venue as we've been approached regarding TENS there. We had concerns that an additional venue with large capacity and an already busy dead-end road would cause complaints from the occupants of the newly finished flats, both opposite the venue and behind on the other side of the canal. The council has already received some complaints about noise from both these residential areas that are emanating from commercial club premises in Hackney Wick. If you're unfamiliar with Wallace Road, there is only one vehicular way in and out with a separate footbridge over the canal into the Olympic Park. The premises user was left in no doubt as to what was required, but assured us that he was up to the task, having run similar events in Tottenham, a venue in Tottenham that was now closing due to new flats itself being built by the side of it. The venue does not sound dissimilar to what we have here. A 10 was granted for the early part of this year, and we had no real issues brought to our attention that arose out of the event. That was listed as test event 1, as we understood the premises user intended to run on 10s at the location until a new permanent home could be found. We now understand that they are seeking to apply for a permanent premises licence at this venue. As a result of the first event going without any known issues, a second test event was granted for the 16th and 17th of March 2022, going on overnight until 4 a.m, then restarting on the Sunday at 1 p.m, and running until 11 p.m. This event did not go well. Complaints were received by the council for both noise from the music and for the noise caused by patrons when the event closed. As far as we could see, there was little or nothing done by the venue to disperse their patrons. The event was visited by my police licensing colleagues during its operation. observations were made that one of the security was doubling up as a medic, which stretched their manpower. The medic also stated that the majority of his time was taken up with drug issues, which gave us concerns about the type of event that was being held. When my colleagues went inside, it was found that the event was also taking place in areas inside the building that had not been licensed on the temporary event notice. My colleagues asked how many people were inside, to which a member of staff stated about 1,000, but then admitted that they didn't really know. This is important for both fire safety reasons, security staff ratios, and for the limit allowed on a 10 of 499. We still don't know if the licence limit was breached, as the clickers that were being used on the first test event clearly were not being used during the second event. As a result of how this event was run, we invited the premises user and his colleague to the police station to discuss our findings. This in itself is unusual on temporary event notices. That such was the level of concern that we had. During this meeting, we discussed the drugs issue and asked where the seized drugs had gone to. The organisers did not know, and it appears there is no audit trail kept showing where or if the drugs have been handed to police or where they have been destroyed. It was suggested by the security company, or it was suggested that the security company may have taken them back to their base, but they would have to check on this. This 10 refers to, this 10 that's now been submitted refers to that meeting in the updated operating plans have been produced, but any plans are useless unless they are being followed. This all gives us no confidence that these are people who are capable of running this type of venue, despite the assurances that they are experienced operators. If you are under advance notice from the police that your events are under scrutiny and you still let things slip on only the second event, then this only further compounds our lack of confidence. And on this basis, we ask that this 10 be counter-noticed. And that, Chair, is my submission.
Thank you, PC Hunwick. That's good. In that case, perhaps I could hear from Mr. Rose as to why he feels that we should have called the 10.
Good afternoon. So basically, I can just say that most of the things that PC Hunwick has said were right. Apart from we did provide a trail of audit for where the drugs had gone and what had been done with them, and then as you said, we had a discussion with them and provided updated documents which were submitted with the license application. I can't actually see them anywhere in the agenda, but we produced a new capacities calculation, updated the noise management plan, done a new emergency evacuation calculation, and updated the security procedures. There are one or two things that we would need to do to carry on with them, just to make sure that we've got things like the contacts from the police for the noise, not the noise, the NOS, sorry, sellers unit and things like that. The reason that I feel that changing the names on the license application over to myself would make a difference to it is that I have over 20 years experience working in the industry, everything from sound engineering all the way through to running festival sites. I've got qualifications in acoustics and first aid, and I'm SIA door supervisor qualified. I'm a personal licensee. I'm recognised as a competent person by the London Fire Brigade. I've got over 2,500 events under my belt personally. And I would assure you that I would be on site myself, actually running the event. Alongside that, I've got Gary, who is the director of the security firm. We have taken action against the head door person who was on the previous event, who has been dismissed due to his flagrant lack of using the systems that were in place. And neither of us were particularly happy with that, obviously, because it's led to this test event that we did last time. Meaning that we have to come and speak to everybody rather than continue along the good path that we were originally. So basically between Gary and myself, we bring about 40 years of event management experience to the events that we propose to put on at the weekend. And as a result, we'd like to have you consider us based on our event management experience and ask any questions that you want other than that.
Okay, thank you. I do have a few questions actually. I mean, I suppose the first question is a pretty obvious one, which is, given all the experience, the 20 years experience that you've got, why did you allow it to all go wrong on event 2? What went wrong there?
I wasn't there. It was my birthday weekend, and it wasn't my name on the license. It was somebody else's name on the license. I'd overseen the introduction of all of the procedures at the first event, and then I was away for my birthday at the last event. And the venue management, who was supposed to be able to pick it up and carry on with it, didn't satisfy the standard that we put in place at the first event.
Can I just ask another quick question about something that we heard from PC Hunwick, which is that you're looking to ask for a permanent license for this venue. Is that correct? Is that partly what we're aiming to do?
No, we've cancelled that idea. We're just going to run on temporary event notices now.
Right. And my other question, immediate question, is for PC Hunwick, which is that apparently there was a drugs audit trail of what happened to the drugs, and what happened to that audit trail between it leaving Mr. Rose and arriving with the police.
Well, as I say, at the time we had our meeting, there was no audit trail, and when the questions were asked, the answer was we don't really know. Now, if that's subsequently been put together, then fair enough. But at the time, that should have been in place before the event, not when we're asking questions about it. Because obviously, if you've seized a load of drugs, if it's not handed and collected to the police at a station somewhere, then those drugs are still in circulation, and that was my concern.
So, Mr. Rose, what did happen to those drugs?
If I could hand you over to Gary, because Gary was the person who dealt with it, that would be
Okay.
the best way to answer this.
Thank you for that. Now, our drug policy is normally when we're working any event is we phone up local licensing. If we can't get hold of local licensing, then they're taken to the nearest police station. That night, all the drugs were handed over in the safe to the medic. The medic does live down here in Devon. He happens to be my son. Standard procedure: if we can't find a police station, it takes home, and then we report it. We take it to the local police station. That night, I've got constant call logs trying to get hold of 101 because we tried to arrange for it to be picked up. And it was eventually delivered to our local police station, Tiverton Police Station, which we did hand through. I think we had that information. I think it's gone in by Monday or Tuesday after the event, which was all there. It was all signed. It was all signed for, sealed in evidence bags, and it was given to. I'll see if I find the police officer's details. If you bear with me a second. Have you got the police officer's details there, Reece? Because I can't find it on my laptop at the moment.
1 second.
I'll just send it all across to you guys. So the evidence trail was all there, and it's all been disposed of. So that's our normal procedure. I don't know why what was said and how it was said, because we've always had this procedure in place since we've been working the cause for the last 4 or 5 years. So I don't understand how that communication failure has gone down there and why.
Okay. PC Hunwick, have you got any comment on that?
Yeah, what I would add is that just from a legalities point of view, to take some drugs that have been seized at an event in Hackney and transport them to Tiverton, you would have some very difficult questions to answer if you were stopped by the police, because that is a far exceeds any sort of distance you should be travelling with the drugs. Really, you should always have the police come and take the drugs from a venue. Most fixed venues, that's what we have doing. They ring 101. Obviously, they're a fixed venue, so they've got a bit more time on their hands, but that's something you should have planned in advance if you're just running on a 10 on an unlicensed venue.
Okay. No, I must say, I was
Can I just
about your
Sorry.
son getting stopped on the
Yeah.
way back to
as I was saying, they were sealed in evidence bags. It was recorded, evidentially, if that's the case. I mean, it's not something we like to do. It's the situation, as you're aware, that trying to find a police station nowadays opened is virtually impossible. And phoning 101 now is virtually impossible. What our normal procedure was is we would phone licensing and then we'd make those arrangements. But again, we should have done something about that. We didn't do something about it. So we throw back in our default setting, bring them back to the office and get them to the nearest police station. They were recorded and it was an evidence bag. So and that was the case. If he was stopped, he could have handed it over and it was recorded in his pocket notebook and on the DOB.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I've asked enough questions for the time being. I'm going to hand over and see if Councillor Conway has questions.
Thank you. PC Hunwick, I just wanted to ask you a question, and that was about, do you accept what you've heard, I suppose, today from Mr. Rose and Mr. Twining Wright about what went wrong for the previous event, and whether not having those people managing this event would allay any of the concerns that you've raised?
Councillor, my issue with that is that it was made very perfectly clear, and it is made perfectly clear to most people that start operating on 10s that they are although they are a case-by-case basis, if you get it wrong and you get it badly wrong, don't ask for another one, because when do you stop? When do you say the mistakes? Don't worry about it. They're always going to promise you that it's going to get better the next time. At what stage do you say no? You know what? Enough's enough. Now they were given the first. We had the meeting. We had discussions. They were given the 10. It ran without us knowing of any problems with it. And then on the very second one, it completely falls apart. Now, I understand what Reese is saying about it being his birthday, but unfortunately, you can't do that. You can't just be absent on what is a new venture, especially it's a very sizable venture when you've got very many different working parts to it. As has been shown, it went wrong. Now, whether or not I can accept that or not. Now, I'm a fairly sceptical person. I've seen a lot of people promising me that they're going to change their ways, etc. The problem I've got is I'm responsible from the policing point of view for saying yes or no on a 10 that could go very badly wrong again. Now, it was explained to Reese that if he submitted another temporary event notice, I would have to put it before subcommittee for them to weigh up what had happened before and to judge whether or not Reese would be able to run another event. And this is now where we're at.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, I'll just reiterate, sorry. If you're told that you're being watched and you've got to be on your best behaviour and you choose not to do that, there's only one person that's at fault for that. To put it in its plainest terms.
Thank you, PC. Did you want any kind of follow-up on that, Councillor?
No.
Okay. I just wanted to pick up something in the application, Mr. Rose, which is where you say, I'm a highly experienced venue operator, having produced over 300 events with over 10,000 attendees since April 2018. We go on. Our approach to upholding the 4 licensing objectives is to work closely with all of the responsible authorities and to take on board any and all concerns, address them, and consistently improve procedures to rectify any issues. Now I know that you've met with the police since event number 2, but you haven't managed to agree with them on how to rectify these issues, have you? Is there anything? Where was the sticking point in conversation with the police about that?
I mean, the police were obviously and understandably upset that we had agreed these sets of rules that had not been adhered to by our head door, and they created confusion during the meeting with the police at the door. Our medic was actually just a medic that night. I don't know why he said he was a door person. He knew he was just a medic. And there was enough security on that night. I don't know why they didn't use the clickers to talk to the police at the front door. I admit that all of that was ridiculous, and the head door person who was responsible for that entire interaction has been dismissed. And the other sections of what went wrong on the night are things that would definitely not have happened if I had been there. I would not have used an area of the venue that wasn't licensed. I've got such a lot of experience dealing both with Hackney and other boroughs that I actually really know my rules and respect them. And up until this one event, I've had a very good working relationship with Hackney Police. I've done several hundred tens in the borough since 2008. And I'm pretty disappointed that my team let me down so badly.
Okay, let me tell you what. One of the things that concerns me most here is the fact that, the police were told that there were about 1,000 people on the premise when you've actually only got now. And it seems that there was actually no way of telling how many people were there because the clicker wasn't being used accurately. So even if it's 750 or indeed 550, that's still too many, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But there was a clicker in use. There was a clicker in use on the night. I don't know why they didn't show it to the police.
So do you have an accurate figure for what you think was the actual number then?
I mean, there were about 450 people at the time that the visit was on. I don't actually have the document to hand, but Gary might be able to get it for me. Are you still there, Gary?
No, Gary is still there, and he wants to add something. And I just want to ask one more question before I bring Gary in, which is just, I suppose if I were in your shoes trying to re-establish my reputation with Hackney Police at this point, I would be looking to perhaps offer something by way of maybe a smaller event or something like that to show that you can manage something smaller. And at this point, you're still going in for the full Monty, I think, aren't you?
So I think we've applied for. I'm just trying to find the double check on the copy of this. Can prevent notice.
Shall I take?
It's 499. It's the maximum.
That's what I thought. So we're still looking at nearly 500 people. I suppose that my question to you really is, would you consider making this event number 3 test event a smaller event to show that you can get it back on the road again? Is that an option for you?
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that we could do that. No problem.
Okay. We'll come back to that in a minute then.
Yeah.
Mr. Twining, right? What did you want to say?
At the time, the reason why the head doorman was dismissed, and he's been dismissed from the company, from that night, he made a number of mistakes, and we're openly transparent about that. For some strange reason, he switched off from working. He was an experienced operative, and for some reason, I don't know why, how, what, and he's got no excuse for me why he lacks anything and done what he did. He didn't do anything. There should have been. He should have been on the door. He's an experienced operative, I said. He should have been on top of the numbers, and he should have greeted the police. For some reason that night, he disappeared. That's one of the reasons why he was dismissed. There shouldn't have been inexperienced operatives, because most of the team there have been with the cause for many years. Again, this caused, events taking place by someone stating there was 1,000 people in there. I don't know why that was said. I don't know what that person said it for. But on the documents, I think it was around about 459 was actually in the venue at the time. I'd have to pull out the venue and look on the things to read it exactly. But again, paperwork wasn't filled out properly that night. Normal procedures for the police coming in would have been, they would have met at the door. They've been given all the information, all the books at hand, the AIs, the signing in sheets and everything. So the police was made available. For some reason that night, it was not made available by the head doorman. And the head doorman has got no excuse for me, and this is why he's been dismissed from the company, because at that point, he's become unsafe for the venue, unsafe to be working at that point. And also he's made the reputation of the cause and myself or our company very, very poor, especially when we normally run Winter Wonderland. We're dealing with 3.4 million people every year. So for us personally, we can't have someone like that. And he's not being a fool guy. He made a lot of mistakes. I can't speak for the causes side on sound and rooms and bits and pieces. That is their side. But on my side, we dealt with it very swiftly.
Okay, thank you. PC Hunwick, from what you've heard of the assurances so far that Mr. Rose rather intends to be on site at the next event, that they have changed their personnel to make sure that these rules are followed in future. Is this giving you any kind of reassurance at all, so that you might reconsider your position?
I'm always willing to take people and give them a chance, but the question is, how many more chances? As I say, my concern was that if these are important events to the company, that people in senior positions are off that weekend and taking their eye off the ball and leaving it to people and head door staff without anybody with any sort of experience of actually running the event. We've also got a problem there with added nitrous oxide sellers, because they're now starting, as they've been dispersed out of Shoreditch, they're now targeting the Wallace Road area, because you've got a couple of very large bars down there. Now, we've not had any problems with those large bars, but those large bars are now going to start pointing the finger if there's more complaints coming from the residents. The problem is that and this was pointed out to Reece when we first met him, this venue is very similar to the one that he's now leaving. And he told us he was leaving it because there's residential properties that sprung up either side of it. Now, we've now got a situation from when Reece first used this building a couple of years back, that is now all being redeveloped. There's a huge block of flats that are between the venue at 119 and the railway station at Hackney Wick. So you're now dealing with a completely different landscape to how it used to be down there. And these are now eliciting problems. We're also getting noise complaints from the other side of the canal on the Olympic Park side, because there's no natural noise break. So any problems are going to be heard and they're going to result in complaints. So some of these things are not necessarily even within Reece's control. but just by the fact that the venue takes, happens, it's an extra event down there that we don't need to do. And if it's going to regularly run on 10s, then I just believe we're going to have more further problems with the neighbours down there.
Okay. 2 quick questions. If there were fewer people, if it were licensed for fewer people, and if it were to shut at 2 o'clock instead of 4 o'clock, would either of those things make any difference?
Well, yes, they might do, because I mean, if you're going to, if they're going to be given another chance, they're going to have to be small steps. I mean, I'll give Reese his due. When we first spoke to him, he wanted 6 a.m. on the first 10, and we said, "You're not having 6 a.m." And he did put it in for 4, but obviously that's gone wrong. So I think it needs to be pulled back further, and it needs to come right back before we can even think about going forward. But as I say, it's a very, very sensitive area down there now, because people are looking around. It's classic. You spend a lot of money on your flat, and even places that were there before you, people don't want them there. But they're definitely not going to want places that are turning up after they've paid money for their flat. And this, I think, is what one of the main problems Reece is going to have going forward, especially if he's going to start putting these through regularly.
No, I understand what you're saying. And funnily enough, I was just down there on Saturday night, thinking, blimey, it's loud down here.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, well, you won't remember it's cumulative there as well, because just the other side of the railway tracks, I know it's no control of Hackney's whatsoever, but you've got Tower Hamlets and Queen's Yard, and there's a lot of complaints that we get, noise complaints that turn out to be from Queen's Yard as well, because people are that sensitive to the noise down there.
I think that's where the noise was coming from Saturday, actually. Queen's Yard, just to say it's not in Hackney, but it does travel and actually sort of reverberates around the new blocks of flats as well.
It does, and the fact that they're all industrial buildings that they've not got roofs, etc., that are built for acoustics. They're corrugated asbestos.
Okay, Mr. Rose, is there any kind of event do you feel that you could put on which is worth your while putting on, which would take a step back from this application and help to regain your trust and reputation with Hackney?
Potentially, because I would like to restore that, because I'm distressed that it's been ruined by my business associates. It's not something that I'm very happy with at all. I think I would need to go away and just discuss with the rest of the team where everything is at, and then see whether or not it's viable for us to do that. But I'm definitely willing to discuss changes, or if you say we would only grant this in this condition, I will happily go back and present that to the rest of the team.
Okay. PC Hunter, you raised your hand just then.
I was just going to say, I think what was the breaking point for a lot of people down there was the second day of it as well. There was no respite when it finished at 4 a.m. and starts up again like sort of midday. I think that did put a lot of people's nose out of joint. When you that's for Reece when he's considering what's viable down there.
Yeah.
Given the time scale on this, there isn't time to have another hearing. So
no, of course not.
It seems to me that we probably have to come up with something specific that you need to go and think about whether or not you can actually deliver and make money on it, basically. I mean, I was looking at. I mean, I take the point about the second day. We could suggest. I mean, well, perhaps I'll ask PC Hunwick. What would your suggestion be, PC Hunwick, about how we might amend this to make it more tolerable for residents, so that we could see if we can find a way forward in the interim?
I think the time's going to have to come back on the first night. There's going to have to be a lower capacity so that we don't get problems with dispersal, because it's one way in, one way out. If we get dispersal wrong and all the Ubers are coming in there all at once, it becomes a logjam. And then, as I say, the second day, I think that's just a bit too much for anybody. The problem I think you're going to have is that from the legalities of it, I think this hearing, and Amanda will have to correct me on this, this is a yes or a no on the 10 as presented. The time that it can be amended as passed.
Okay.
Yes, it's a case of council considering whether or not to issue a counter notice based on the 10 that's been published. Yes.
Okay. Is that what you were about to say as well? Thank you. Okay, so I'm heading down the wrong track anyway. So,
Yeah, they'd need to submit a new application. Yeah.
and there isn't time for that to be submitted.
That would be it. Yeah, that would be out of time, Chair.
So, I mean, it sounds to me very much like the sensible option for this would be for me to withdraw this and apologise for wasting everybody's time today, so that we can move forwards and try and discuss a better option again with PC Hunwick, and try and retain our good working relationship with the police.
That does seem to me like a good idea, because I think you're unlikely to get this granted as it stands at the moment, and since we can't
Yeah.
amend it, I don't know. Councillor Conway, what are your thoughts?
No, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's about what I've made notes about everything that everybody's discussed with me about the site. I'm happy to take that away and present to the team. I do know that our ticket sales were down this weekend, which is why I was saying yes, we could do smaller. It's Glastonbury weekend. I'm sure that we can get away with cancelling this actual event without too much harm to the business, because I think we've only sold about 20 tickets.
Well, you've got the rail strike Saturday as well, haven't you? So people can.
Yeah, we've only sold about 20 tickets, and then there's this rail strike on. So I actually think the sensible thing for me to do is to withdraw this 10, cancel it, and say thank you very much for everybody's time, and let you move on to the next one.
Okay, thank you very much. And
would you like me to send a notification of that by email?
No, that's fine. No, that's okay. We will put a notice, publish a notice to say that this application was withdrawn. Is that okay, Super?
Yeah, it would be better as well, even if you could.
Oh, yes, sorry. Sorry, Mr. Rose. You do need to confirm it in writing and send it to the licensing officer.
Just the licensing. I'll do that as soon as I get off the screen now. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate all of your time.
Super's a stickler for procedure.
And you've got food for thought for what you might want to come back.
Thank you very much for your input, everybody. Good luck with your next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Okay, and the final, I don't think we have anybody here representing on the final issue, have we? Apart from PC Hunwick again.
Just me.
Sorry, Chair. I can see
Mr. Rose
is still around. So.
Mr. Rose is still here, is he?
Yeah, he said he has to leave the meeting.
Mr. Rose, would you mind going?
I think he might have just gone.
Yeah.
He's just become Mario.
Okay, Super, would you like to formally introduce this part of it?
Sorry, Chair, we need to stop the live recording.
Oh, we do.
Please, thank you. I'm going to private.